Welcome back to the GSMC Golf Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're talking about Justin Thomas and his year to date, as he has had a very interesting year. And we're just going to start by talking about his results. He hasn't played since the PGA Championship. That was the last tournament he has played in. Kind of has helped to these short fields, looking for some solution in his game. This is the second kind of long break he's taken this, or third long break that he's taken this year. I'm sorry. So before the Wells Fargo, he hadn't played in 3 weeks. Before the Wells Fargo Championship, he hadn't played in 3 weeks. RBC Heritage was the last one he played back in April. 21st of April was when that tournament was. That was after his cut at the Masters. And then he took another break between the Genesis and Arnold Palmer. That was about a month-long break. He's searching for something in his game, and I can't tell you what it is, really. His putting has been horrendous this year, but his putting has never been his strong suit. He's been great all over the golf course. He just can't get it together for an entire round to win one this year. He has some good results. PGA Championship tied for 8th. Wells Fargo Championship tied for 21st after a good opening round but disappointing kind of fall off to end even to par on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 71, 73, and 72 respectively on those days. Tied for 5th at the RBC Heritage after his cut at the Masters. That was pretty impressive. Looked like he was getting back to his old self. But before that, it was the Valspar Championship where he tied for 64th. He was cut at the Players, tied 12th at the Arnold Palmer, cut at the Genesis, tied 12th at the Waste Management, Phoenix Open, tied for 6th at the Pebble Beach, tied for 3rd at the Amex. Starting the year, tied 3rd, tied 6th, tied 12th. You expect him to be contending for a lot of these tournaments going into this year. It looked like he was really turning the tide. On his swing, it looked really good. His driver was playing amazing. As of recent, it's been pretty bad, and it's been very disappointing. And when you look at his stats, it doesn't answer questions, but you could see really what we're looking at here in his stats. On his strokes gained, approaching the green has been great. It's 7th in the entire tour. Strokes gained off the tee, 47th on the tour. Strokes gained total, 13th. Strokes gained around the green, 10th. Very high up on a lot of these, numbers and statistics. And he's been looking great. And his swing has been great, but putting has been horrendous. 159th on the tour in putting, and it's just all over. It's just all over the place in putting. In total putting, he's 105th. Putts per round, he's at 68th. One putt percentage, only 40% of his greens or of his made putts are only in one. That's 89th. 3-putt avoidance has been pretty good. He only 3-putts about 2% of the time, so that's pretty impressive. 33rd ranking there. Average distance of putts made, though, is 65 feet and 8 inches for a tournament. For a round, that is 65 and 8 inches for a round. 164th in the entire field for Justin Thomas. So his putting's been very bad. Strokes gained putting, I said 159th, and that distance with putting kind of explains it for you. His approach has been probably his strongest aspect of his game. 7th in the tour on approach. Approach outside of 100 yards has been 25th. Approach inside of 100 yards has been pretty abysmal, and this is probably the one that you're looking at to. Yeah, this is a problem. Strokes gain or approach inside 100 yards, he's 117th. Proximity to hole, 71st. Greens in regulation, 65.99% is where his greens and regulations are. So he's hitting 2/3 of his greens on iron shots. So 73rd in the field at that. His all-around short game has been. It's been pretty bad, but his strokes gained around the green has been good. So, take that, take with that what you will. He's 18th scrambling from the rough. He is 137th in sand save percentage, so he is not liking those bunkers, and he has not really liked the bunkers his entire career, so that makes sense. Scrambling outside of 30 yards, we talked about how bad his approach has been inside of 100. So outside of 30, you expect 143rd. That makes sense. His scrambling percentage, 62.38%. Percent of the time he's getting up and down. That's 65th in the PGA Tour. So, and then when you're talking about driving, and this is really, his driving distance has been great. 22nd on tour, averaging 308 yards per drive. Total driving has been pretty great, 38th on the tour in total driving. Strokes gained off the tee, 47th on the tour. Here's where we get a problem with Justin Thomas, and I think this is probably the biggest problem I have with Justin Thomas and his golf game overall right now. His driving accuracy is 110th. He's missing a lot of fairways. That's what that tells me. When you're playing out of the rough so often, it makes sense that your approach is not that great, especially on these par fours, shorter par fours, where you're driving them within 100 yards and you're ending in the rough. It's really hard to get wedges up and down out of the rough, and we're seeing that with Justin Thomas here. And I think that's the biggest area of his game that this is probably the furthest I've ever seen him drive the ball. He's just not accurate with it. So I mean, it's the age old question: is it worth an extra 10 yards if you lose like 3 or 4 or 5% accuracy on your drives? I don't think it's worth it for Justin Thomas. His iron shots outside of 100 yards have been great this entire year. I think they get even better when you're looking at like 158 out. No, I'm interested to see. Yeah, from 100 and between 125 and 150, he's the 82nd. Between 175 and 200, he's 32nd. So that's pretty much the range that he likes to live in. 118 outside of 200, but it's very hard to hit a green from outside of 200 yards. So for these guys, 175 to 200 yards is usually where you're living at, and that's the distance that you're playing a lot of these shots at on these 500-yard par fours, especially, or these these 450-yard par fours where you're electing to go 3-wood off the tee, something like that. That's really the range that he's living in, and 32nd in that is pretty impressive. But again, the driving accuracy builds into that. If you're playing from the fairway just that 10% more, you're hitting a lot more greens, and I think that might be Justin Thomas's biggest problem. 110th in driving accuracy at a 60.23% of fairways hit. That means he's playing out of the rough 40% of the time. 4/10 of your second shots playing out of the rough is rough. Sorry, that was bad. But yeah, 110th in driving accuracy. That's got to change for Justin Thomas. We talked about his buddy Jordan Spieth, and that's kind of what made me want to talk about Justin Thomas a little bit more here, because those two are best friends. Those two kind of go hand in hand in my mind. And Jordan Spieth has had a very bad year, but he's playing with that wrist injury. So when you're looking at Justin Thomas, what's his? It's not excuse, but what's his causation to this pretty bad year? He hasn't won on tour since 2022, where he won the PGA Championship. Very impressive PGA Championship at that, but he 15-time winner on tour. He turned pro in 2013, only 31 years old. This is when he should be winning a lot of tournaments, and he's just not. 14th in the FedEx Cup as things stand right now. Makes sense. He's playing well enough to get into position on these on these leaderboards, but he's not putting himself in contention to win a tournament that you kind of expect these guys to do. So 14th in the FedEx Cup, right behind Jason Day, who hasn't played golf in a pretty long time. He's been taking a break. When was the last time he's played golf? Now I'm actually curious. It's been since the PGA Championship was the last time that he swung a club in a major tournament. Of course, he has he's had a pretty good year. Jason Day making a lot of leaderboards, but he hasn't been able to win one yet in 2024 either. And then he's right above Patrick Cantlay. So when you look at Justin Thomas, 14th in the FedEx Cup standings, he looks like he's been playing very well, but not winning a tournament this year is very disappointing for him, and I know it is, and I know he wants to be winning on tour, so we'll see if he could turn this around. It's been a disappointing year for Justin Thomas up to this point, but he has another half of a season to be able to turn this around and put together a good 2024. Hasn't won on tour since 2022. We'll see if that can turn around. But that'll wrap it up for our discussion on Justin Thomas. When I come back, we will be talking about the best golfers in the world and my top 10 list of best golfers in the world.